Since 1972,
I gotta play the didgeridoo.
destroyed all the papers and blew up the Challenger crew. Except for the twinsies.
It's not real.
Space is fake AF. Space is fake AF.
Look out into deep space away from the sun, it's the darkest night you can imagine.
Hey, space boy, you broke my rocket man heart.
You can smell a little roast beef.
Where are the stars? Is it bright or is it dark?
Okay, is this thing on? It is 1/11/2022, 9:38 p.m. Mountain Time. I sent out notifications just a few moments ago. This is Chief Crow. Space is fake. Just Google it or click the link below and get the track from us. We have it on bandcamp.com. Just go to chiefcrow.bandcamp.com. A lot of music to download. We want to support all of these artists, especially now as we really, I think, confront an onslaught of anti-meme rhetoric. The people are being conditioned to fear free thoughts out there, and we don't want this type of stuff to be censored. It's one of the reasons why I've always emphasized on this channel the importance of memes, music, and art. Harder to censor than just straight ideas put out there. Wrong think. A couple of interesting developments since this morning. I've been looking closer at the resemblance between Owen Schroyer and the QAnon shaman, and many people do agree that we're looking at the same person. So we'll cover that. And by the way, Owen Schroyer is going to be 33 next week. Let's see, the missing says Chief Crow was live last weekend. Yeah, actually, if you go to infiniteplainsociety.com, I have a link to his latest live performance. Again, go to infiniteplainsociety.com, and a couple of posts down, you'll see Chief Crow's latest live stream where he actually performed one of the new songs, Airship. That was on January the 9th, which was the day of the fire I wanted to talk about in the Bronx. We brought that up. I started off today talking about the curious numerology with that particular event. And someone in the Discord had asked me, what does this mean? What does it mean that you have a fire on 1/9, 19-story building, 19 reported victims? You see this overlap here. 19 people reported dead, 19 stories on 1/9. A couple of other things that stood out about it. 11 o'clock in the morning. I mean, the 9/11-y nature of it is what I was discussing. Very 9/11-y, meaning it's just replete with symbolism that calls back that particular event. But is there a deeper meaning to all of it? That's what this person was asking me. I'm thinking, well, 19 is a common feature with a lot of the major transformative psyops from, well, Pearl Harbor, Operation AI, or 1/9. 19 hijackers, a new Pearl Harbor, 9/11. 19 years later, COVID-19, preceded by the comet C-19, by the way. And now, post-COVID, we have the reset where the world's going to be taken over by this AI god, which is Gaia, the Global AI Initiative, Alliance, or whatever. Global AI. Again, AI is 19. All of this stuff makes a lot of sense when you see how it all integrates. So what does it mean here? That you have this Bronx fire. Now, they moved the death toll down to 17 after the fact, but we're talking about the initial reports when the PSYOP is actually in play. And I'm saying fake until proven real. The numbers, the photography, the presentation, the ritualistic nature, it looks very phony to me. And that's based on my analysis of other staged events. So I've had some people who look into this deeper and send me some clips of witnesses who pretty much sound like what you would expect actors to sound like. They say the things you'd expect actors to say. We could even quote them in advance. Like, I believe this person says, it was like a movie. Oh, another thing, it takes place in, was it Twin Parks? So there's your Twin Towers reference. Twin Parks is the building. Twin Parks building. Okay, so here's a survivor, and I'm just going to scoot to the part on the timeline where she describes how it was, quote, like a movie.
Out the movie. Like
Every young kid's jumping out the window, people screaming, help, help me, please, I'm burning, I'm burning. It was just something like you don't see in real life. It was something out the movie.
Yeah, okay, so something from a movie. Very common refrain when it comes to crisis actors. It's like they all have the same basic script. So, anyway, what does this all mean? What is the meaning, is what this person was asking. And I was thinking, okay, well, there's got to be a connection here between everything else. This is too 9/11-y. So, is there an indicator here of what's to come? And I figured it out. I've been saying for some time now that the next 9/11 is coming from space, as in Space Wars, Don't Look Up, is what we've been hearing, right? Well, I'm thinking, okay, wait, if there are space wars, what are they going to look like? It's going to be CubeSats zapping us from outer space, lasers on like these, like Elon Musk had talked about, lasers on his CubeSats. So here you have a space heater. And I'm just thinking, this fire was started by space heaters. So I'm thinking it could be the case here that the real meaning of this 9/11 event is it's foreshadowing the oncoming space 9/11 and that the space wars are heating up. That's what I think it actually means. Going through some comments, Glenn Clark says, good evening, y'all. Brogetta says that was an awesome performance. Oh, yeah, referring to Chief Crow. Michael says, was the death of Danny Tanner fake IPS? We'll discuss that one. I know there's a little bit of, I don't know if you'd call it predictive programming, maybe it's out of context, but his last IG post said something about he was going to keep going until he gets the shot, some kind of reference to a shot. I also found an article here is posted in Discord about Stanley Kubrick's daughter being a supporter of both the Fed-run Proud Boys and QAnon, also run by the Feds. I mean, that's interesting in itself, but again, Stanley Kubrick's daughter supporting this whole thing. The whole QAnon story was probably created by Kubrick, if you ask me. I think it goes back far. Okay, and before we get any further, let me go ahead and, God, there's so many different directions we can go in. Let me go ahead and explain this really quick. I have this meme up. You have the QAnon shaman in the left, and you've got Bill Hicks on the right. And Bill Hicks is saying, just stay in character, Owen. The sheep will never figure it out. Bwahaha. And then the QAnon shaman says, I trust you, Alex, my mentor. Can't wait until we get to fake my death when I turn 33 next year. So the inside joke here is that, yes, we are saying that Alex Jones is Bill Hicks, and in this universe it makes perfect sense that Owen Schroyer is the QAnon shaman. Now, I went ahead and tweeted all this to the QAnon shaman, Owen Schroyer. So we'll see if he addresses this. Like, prove it. Okay, David says, everything that the media repeats is fake in some way or entirely fake. Yeah, I've made this point before that you can be, and I had an ABC journalist who was listening, a reporter, a snitch for the MSM, who was snitching on people violating quarantine on Easter, doing Easter egg hunts, while Cuomo was doing an Easter egg hunt and nobody complained. Anyway, this guy was listening in for some reason. He calls and he's like, you can't call us all liars. We're all in the media. And I'm like, I'm not calling you a liar, but your entire worldview is actually framed by lies. So, you're a liar you're reading a teleprompter or a teleprompted script. So you can't claim to have firsthand information. So you could be repeating lies. So I'm just saying that a lot of these people are, unwittingly, I guess what you'd call them enablers for the mendacious media. They're essentially apologists for it. Take a listen to this really quick, because right now, one of the main topics with regard to the anti-vax, pro-vax thing is now they're calling the anti-vaxxers all kinds of things. As you know, they're applauding the notion that you can grave dance on the death of anti-vaxxers. But now this.
Did you know that urine is sterile? You can drink it.
Now, I don't think that's true. That was Tyler Durden from, what is it, Fight Club. Now, the only reason I brought that up is there's this accusation that's been leveled at all the anti-vaxxers, that anti-vaxxers are somehow all into this practice of drinking their own, urine. And I'm like, okay, now that was something that was actually attributed to flat earthers some time ago. And that's because it is a fact that most of the major flat earth channels that were featured on Netflix were, in fact, advocates of that. Well, recently, you had a very popular anti-vaxxer actually say that this is how you cure yourself. And I have to be careful about saying it too explicitly because they'll say I'm disseminating misinformation. But like to me, this is all just misinformation that they plant. They put these memes out there so that people think, okay, the people who go off the script that the mainstream gives them are somehow going to become these debased heathens, just doing gross things. Well, you know what? Interestingly enough, one of the faces of the anti-vax, one of its champions right now, who's not even technically an anti-vaxxer, is Joe Rogan, who's into all kinds of stuff. And here's a video from a few years ago where Joe Rogan is on his live stream, on video, just takes his coffee cup out and reuses it.
Don't videotape my penis, especially with soft.
Joe's saying drinking your own waste is a healthy.
So here you have Joe Rogan live on his stream, no pun intended, drinking his own waste.
Morning beverage.
Don't be videotaping my penis.
How much do we need here?
Just a
Anyway, that's the most popular podcaster in the world. That should tell you something. Unbelievable. I'm not going to torture you with this. I'm just pointing it out that this is probably going to be in the news here very soon. This is going to be brought up because they're bringing up how many of these prominent anti-vaxxers are part of that, which, I don't find that believable. Like I said, it's a straw man that they create, that they can attack. They do it all the time. Here's something that I called out. This morning, I had brought up how Tucker Carlson did a little segment where he said Michael Jackson made a public appearance. And then he cut to a scene where Nancy Pelosi was talking. So the joke was Nancy Pelosi looks like Michael Jackson, haha. Now, I can see why it's kind of funny in a way to misidentify somebody in a deepfake kind of way, especially if there's a very close resemblance. I mean, we do it all the time. So I thought it was funny. I mean, I think the idea is funny. The approach is funny. When he did it with this Michael Jackson thing, I thought, wow, you're going to anger two crowds here. You're going to make your fringe mad because the QAnoners are actually hoping that Michael Jackson comes back. So here he is joking about Michael Jackson coming back, which is Michael Jackson, if you didn't know, here's how it works. JFK Jr. faked his death so he could reveal the evil underbelly in politics. Michael Jackson faked his death so he could reveal the evil underbelly in the music industry. Princess Diana doing that for the royals. And down the line, you can find all these heroes of the QAnoners, the Kool-Aid drinkers, who are going to come back from the dead and save the world. Yeah, dead celebrities are going to save us all. Starting with the dead Kennedys. And JFK, who's 106, probably on a steady Big Mac diet or whatever. But my point is, he's toying with them. Because here they are, they're these opium addicts who haven't had a decent hit in months. And here they're told, okay, prophecy's coming true, Michael Jackson's coming back from the dead. And here he is, straight-faced, Tucker Carlson, yeah, Michael Jackson's back. But actually cuts to a scene of Nancy Pelosi. So when I watched this, I played it this morning, and I said, okay, one, it's going to backfire with the Q side, but the other side is going to rip on him for it. The left wing's going to be super offended. They're going to say, you misgendered her, it was somehow racist and sexist, and sure enough, Tucker Carlson mistakes Nancy Pelosi for Michael Jackson in a misogynistic, failed attempt at humor. This is from Daily Kos. I had a blog on Daily Kos for one post, and they deleted me. For anybody here who's wondered what makes Tucker Carlson the top-rated program on Fox News, he provided the answer to that perplexing question. On Monday night's episode, the ordinarily humor challenge host morphed into a kindergarten comic, and he demonstrated that he can wallow in the mud as well as any other pig. Interesting. Anyway, I don't really care to go through this whole thing. I just knew this would happen. And yeah, he does have an interesting resemblance to Curly from the Three Stooges. I have kind of wondered about that. He reminds me of somebody. His deadpan stare, and he has that crease, that really pronounced frown. And I was like, who does he look like? And yeah, I could say that, yes, and this is fair. This is fair play. You're going to say that Nancy Pelosi looks like Michael Jackson. Well, then, yes. This is a fair comparison. All right, there's some comments I can't read about what Joe Rogan does on his own. Let's see. David says Alex already said he'd be a cannibal. Yeah, Alex actually said that 6 weeks into our 2-week lockdown. He said he couldn't take much more of it, and that he's sizing up his neighbors because he's not going to let his daughters starve, and that he's going to eat, quote, neighbor's ass. And he even specified that he would hunt down the liberals, and he would eat them like corned cob. And I think some people out there in Austin might like that. I don't know what that means. Anyway, yeah, he did. He admitted to cannibalism like 6 weeks in, and I'm like, why is this guy who's got, he's got a whole store of storable foods and supplements and water purification kits. Why is this guy, of all people, worried about his food supply running out? That struck me as kind of weird. He's already looking at his neighbors. All right, I'm going to play a short segment of Tucker just so you all can get an idea of where.
Yesterday was Sunday. You may have found yourself on the couch, idly flipping around the TV dial, and if you flipped far enough, you could have had the shock of your life. Michael Jackson was on Face the Nation. Now, to be clear, this wasn't video of Michael Jackson performing his hit songs in the 1990s. This appeared to be a living version of the international pop star that news reports claim died of a drug OD more than a dozen years.
See, and I also think that's somewhat offensive to the Jackson family. Also, which this is also very interesting to me, too. It's kind of a contradiction where the QAnoners want to save the children from the deep state who drink their blood and traffic them. They want to save the children. So who are they hoping to come back from the dead to save the children? Michael Jackson. Like, out of all the people that I wouldn't even hire him to babysit. And you think he's going to save the children of the world? Anyway, to me, it's just like they do these mental gymnastics to get around these things. Oh yeah, the reason why Donald Trump had to go to Epstein Island is he had to make sure that he was right, that the deep state were doing bad things, and he had to get the dirt on them. Right. Well, what about the 5 other times he went that he failed to mention? All right, so we're talking about how Bill Hicks is probably mentoring Owen Shaman. Does anybody disagree that Owen Shaman is Q Schroyer, or that Bill Hicks, anybody here, is Alex Jones? We're joined by Crater Earth USA, Lean Dion, IFEPA 73. Let me go through some headlines here. A Boston attorney has laid out a simple, compelling case for charging Trump with seditious conspiracy for the January 6th insurrection. So I've been thinking about this, and I've been looking at the way they frame Trump as this criminal, as a crook. And I was thinking about how when he first went running for office, his campaign manager was Roger Stone. Roger Stone is the guy who was the campaign manager for Richard Nixon. So I've been thinking maybe there's something coming up here for Trump. It seems like a lot of bad news. And, this is how much, Roger Stone, if you didn't know, he's got a tramp stamp of Nixon on his back. Let me pull a picture up. I brought that up earlier. Yeah, here it is. I mean, does it count? Is it still technically a tramp stamp if it's on the upper back? And it's a sizable tattoo. This isn't just a little stamp, actually. But yeah, here he is. He kind of fetishizes the whole Nixon thing for some reason. Every time I see Roger Stone, he looks like a deodorant commercial. Every single picture of Roger Stone in recent memory, he's got both his arms up, doing the peace sign. Arms raised so high you can see his belly. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying he's always doing this. Always. So okay, this is the campaign manager for Nixon, campaign manager for Trump. Maybe Trump's going to take some kind of fall, like Watergate level. And I think this is it. I think that charging Trump with a seditious conspiracy for January 6th, I think that this might have some legs, at least enough to bring him down Nixon style. And maybe there isn't going to be a Trump 2024. Okay, going through some comments. Let me open up phones as well, because I have some voicemails I have to get through. This is something I wanted to point out as well. I mentioned this morning. Leonardo DiCaprio's excessively large carbon footprint. I mean, he's got a mega yacht. His excessively large carbon footprint is counterbalanced by his tiny actual footprints. And here's that image if you missed it this morning. I still can't explain it. And I look at photography all the time. I can't see how this is faked. This is not the photoshopped lower half of Joe Rogan merged with Leonardo DiCaprio. This is actually a picture. Anyway, it says, don't look up. You might see DiCaprio being an eco-hypocrite. But again, just remarking on his extremely small feet. And the weird thing about this is, the way foreshortening works is the objects that are closer seem bigger in proportion. But here, he's got this massive head and his feet are like, I don't know. All right, let's continue. Going through recent headlines. There's so many things to catch up on as well. I'm waiting for the media to rip on Joe Rogan for being a part of, what are we going to call them? The pee drinker. Look, anti-vax leader urges people to drink urine instead of taking a vaccine. Like, this is the new twist on the whole anti-vax movement. They found another way to slander anybody who doesn't want to be forcibly poked at every turn. And I called this early on. I said it's going to be a communion wafer for the world church. It's not going to be a one-off. You don't get saved. It's not like baptism one time for a whole life. No, this is a weekly thing. Some other headlines here. Computer simulation could predict future asteroid impacts. This just shows you how we're going into this metaverse, where we're going into a simulation within a simulation. Okay, here's another one. Ashley Babbitt's mother showed up at the 1/6 remembrance party for Nancy Pelosi. So just bringing this up because you have this specter of right-wing agitated violence constantly rearing its head. And starting on the 22nd of January, the Army is going to be doing, the military is going to be doing some kind of operation in 24 counties in North Carolina, where they are simulating combat with anti-vaxxers in the backwoods, unconventional warfare. So again, and they put it out there, they said, you have been warned. Like, it's not like you've been notified that we're going to be firing rounds and simulating killing you people. No, they said you have been warned. This is from MSN.com. Guerrilla war exercise to be fought across rural North Carolina counties. The Army warns. So again, if you're in North Carolina, they're warning you. I mean, doesn't that just sound ominous? Not that I think they're going to do anything other than deploy crisis actors and patsies, made-for-TV villains, and they have plenty of them. I've been examining, I have some great photos if you want to go deeper into that hilarious scene where Roseanne Boylan with the "Don't Tread on Me" flag gets trampled to death. Yeah, that whole scene is so fake. A change of wardrobe mid-scene, dummies on the ground. The entire 1/6 event was phony. That's why when I'm looking at these pictures of Owen Schroyer and comparing him to the QAnon shaman, I'm like, yeah, it's a big circus. It's 100%, it's a big circus. So it's more likely than not that this is actually somebody playing some type of a role. Okay, let me check my voicemails. I got a few of them. Some of these are quite long. I got transcripts. Okay, let's see. Mike from PR Newswire. Okay, here's one. Okay, this is voicemails, and then I'll take your calls.
Hey, Tim. I had a question for you. I'm kind of new to some of this information that you guys have. In the Auto Hoax song by Chief Crow, like the mellow one, he makes a reference to telecommunications after 1996, and I was wondering what that is in reference to. Thank you so much. You have a great night. Bye.
Okay, the Telecommunications Act of 1996 is the first major overhaul of telecommunications law in 62 years. So it happened in 96. This was used to promote competition and reduce regulation in order to secure lower prices and higher quality service. Okay, so let me go ahead and see how it affected radio. It says here, it changed the media landscape landscapes, it opened the way for consolidated media ownership. Okay, so that's what he's suggesting. It opened up the way for consolidation of media ownership. And this is in reference to the song Auto Hoax. I'll go ahead and play that part of the song so you know what the caller is referencing, where he references the Telecommunications Act of 1996. I'll put a link in the chat and in the description of the video so you can download these tracks, or go to chiefcrow.bandcamp.com.
I'm on auto hoax and it feels so good. You just auto believe everything like I knew that you would. In my dream, you know I ain't got time. For another crisis actor with soulless eyes.
My buddy, my buddy and me.
Okay, here it is. Now, that's that voice over there, my buddy and me. That's from the Vegas hoax, where one of these actors, he's like, yeah, I was shot in the head, and it came out, luckily, it didn't hit my brain. And it's like, where's the wound? And his hair is not disturbed at all from this surgery or whatever. Anyway, he's like, yeah, my buddy died, my buddy. Try to fake a tear. But right after that, he mentions the Telecommunications Act of 1996. Here it is.
Buddy, my buddy and me.
Telecommunications Act of 1996. 96, y'all. Gonna filter your eyes and scrub your mind.
Okay, gonna filter your eyes and scrub your mind. Makes perfect sense in context now. So I want to say thanks to the caller for asking, what did Chief Crow mean in Auto Hoax when he said, or saying, the Telecommunications Act of 1996 would scrub your mind? Okay, next voicemail. Okay, no show. Okay, next voicemail.
Hey, what's going on, Tim? Hey, I just wanted to just tell you all this story real quick. So, I know a woman that lives, in the same town that I do, and she is just as bad about the vaccine on the conspiracy side as the people that, if you don't get the vaccine, you're going to kill everyone. So she thinks everyone that's got the vaccine is dead. Like, she actually thinks that their heads are going to explode.
Okay, so if you didn't catch that, the caller is a little muffled. Sounds like he's got a mask. Basically, he has a friend who's deep into conspiracies, etc., and believes that anybody who got the thing, their head is going to explode. I saw this video. I think I tweeted it yesterday. I don't know where it originated from, but it was a video of heads exploding. Now, it wasn't gruesome. It was like a CGI, some kind of music video, and a bunch of heads. They were all getting nuked at the same time. Let me see if I can. Well, anyway, my point is, he's suggesting that she believes this, and I thought, Crown. I've been talking about, the other implications for what this whole thing could be. So heads exploding. Anyway, let me go ahead and continue to hear what he has to say.
Okay, so the reason for the call is this is kind of where a lot of this is coming from, though, is so General Flynn went and he's doing these talks all over the country. So he happened to be in Springfield in the last couple months. I think the ticket, she told me that it was $250 to go and talk to him.
Wow, $250 to go talk to General Flynn. Now, General Flynn is a very mendacious, tricky character. Because on the one hand, and he's been accused of Satanism, which he's not a Satanist, but he does invoke some angel of light. I mean, maybe he doesn't know it yet. I mean, if you just look up General Flynn Satanist, you'll see where I'm coming from. There's a deeper story here, though. General Flynn has the QAnoners. Here he is swearing the QAnon oath, and he claims he's not a QAnoner. He's suing CNN for associating him with Q. Yet he's continually speaking at Q events. One event in Vegas, he was in front of a giant Queen playing card next to a 7. So you get it? Q, 7, 17. Then he's having his congregations pray the prayers of the Church Universal Triumphant, a doomsday cult that went underground, literally, in bunkers in 1990 because they thought that Russia and China were going to nuke us. The cult didn't go away because they believe the reason we weren't nuked is because they prayed so hard, so they saved us. So thank your local Church Universal Triumphant member. Well, he apparently restyled the whole Church Universal Triumphant into Church Universal Trump and made it about Trump, Pence, Judgment Day. It's all in the subtext. He mentions his birthday being Christmas, which I guess makes him Jesus-like. But the main thing is, he has the congregants of, these QAnon patriots chanting the prayers of the Church Universal Trump, which is basically invoking the Archangel Michael. That's the angel that they're invoking. So I'm like, okay, so this guy's invoking the Archangel, talking about the sevenfold rays. By the way, the Archangel Michael's always pictured with a spear stabbing the devil, just like the QAnon sent killer with a spear stabbing the reptile kid. He said, my kid has reptilian DNA, I had to kill them for Q. I mean, these are all stories, but General Flynn has no business suing CNN for associating him with Q. In fact, you can find a karaoke of General Flynn singing We Ain't Gonna Take It at the last QAnon conference he was at. The significance there, the final QAnon drop was a link to the Twisted Sister song We Aren't Gonna Take It, a reference to the election. So there is no plausible deniability. General Flynn is clearly down with the Q struggle, and the fact that he's trying to distance himself from it, like I said, it's very, very disingenuous of him. So just to kind of, I wanted to kind of bring up the background on General Flynn and how he can't deny being a part of this whole QAnon operation. Let me go ahead and go back a couple of steps here. I want to catch up on chat. So I'm going through the voicemail, and this person actually went out to go meet the guy. I'm like, wait. So she meets this General Flynn in person. Let's go ahead and go back to the voicemail. Only $250.
Anyway, Flynn told this group of people that they're going to set off an EMP, which will take down the grid, and that when the EMP goes off, I'm not kidding you, that everyone who has got the vaccine is going to die. Like, this is what...
Okay, now that's fascinating. I remember when Trump said something, it was probably just a couple of months into the pandemic, where he said, when this thing's over, it'll be like a light at the end of the tunnel. He said it'll be a bright light. Do you remember when Trump was speaking about a bright light? Like he talked about some bright light or some bright flash. Anyway, Donald Trump is always, I always thought that was kind of shady of him. He's like, there's some bright light. And I'm like, well, again, light, EMP, very interesting. Anyway, let me go ahead and hear the rest of this person's thing, because an EMP causing people's heads to explode.
He's pushed.
Commenter says, I don't mean to giggle. No, we're talking... Crater Earth USA says, now that would be hilarious. Yeah, in a way it kind of would be, I guess, from that perspective. I mean, what a starting point for a movie.
Oh, and obviously he's pushing the narrative that, the deep state is being taken out and so on and so forth. This is what she said. I don't have video recording of Flynn saying this to the group, but this is what she told me. And I just wonder how, someone that has had, NSA.
Jordan says blinding lights. Yeah, exactly. There's a few things about 2020. Blinding Lights was one of the trending hits, and there's all kinds of interesting significances to that track, the video, the role that Abel, The Weeknd, played in that video, the Joker-esque role in a vacated Vegas, running amok while the streets are empty, before they locked down the city. Blinding Lights challenge, all those dancing nurses, because they had nothing else to do, the dancing nurses, grave dancing on your freedoms, they were dancing to the Blinding Lights challenge. I mean, I almost have this nostalgia for 2020, and I kind of want to go back and, watch some of these dancing nurse videos. I mean, we had compilations of these dancing nurses, and that was what gave everything away. To me, what gave away the whole game was the fact that they had to find some way to distract a lot of these people who would otherwise know. Like here's an example. This is just a short little clip here. This is what was happening during the pandemic while you were scared. Now, when I say you, I mean people who weren't listening to Infinite Plane Radio at the time, who didn't know. God, what a waste of PPE, by the way. There wasn't enough PPE. I was told, hey, there's not enough to go around. There were doctors in Germany that were protesting the lack of PPE by stripping down naked. As if that makes any sense. Doctors in Germany knew to protest PPE. So, look, German doctors posed naked at PPE shortage. A group of German doctors opposed to draw attention to shortages. So, one, there's not enough hospital beds to go around. The morgues are full. Hospitals are so packed that the bodies are falling out the windows from the top floors, the 311 jumpers. And then here you got these dancing nurses. Waste of PPE. And then here again, these doctors suffering for everybody else. I mean, what a shameless display of agitprop and manipulation 2020 was across the board. Lean Dion says, the dancing nurse is one of the biggest tells of this ritualistic scamdemic. Oh yeah, my favorite ones were the ones where they would have the dead body, the rubber bodies, the simulated bodies in body bags, dancing with dead bodies. I mean, they got really kind of, well, the worst actually, I would say. God, there were so many. So there was one, and this is kind of an interesting one. You had a bunch of nurses on a hospital bed that they were pretending was the Titanic, and they had the Titanic song playing, and they had someone in front pretending to be Leonardo DiCaprio with his arms spread, holding some other nurse. And so they had like another one where they were all playing like they were in a band and they were banging on bedpans. Other ones where they're doing pole dances on IV racks while they're skating down the halls. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the pharmacies in the hospitals were open. It was an insane asylum. It really was. Now, were they really nurses that were being bought off with drugs and parties, or were they strippers, dancers, crisis actresses, crisis dancers? I don't know. Anyway, one of the official songs of the 2020 PSYOP year was that Blinding Lights. And so we're listening to a caller describing how General Flynn, for a mere $250, let his friend know that there's going to be an EMP that shuts down our grid and literally causes the explosion of the crown, the corona, of the head of anybody who took the vax.
Clearance, top general in the military could be going around and actually telling this to, the people that follow him. But she's totally freaked out. She's scared. And
interesting. Again, she's freaked out, she's scared. Now, this isn't something that he said to mainstream audiences. Quite the contrary. To the mainstream, he says, I have nothing to do with Q. But to the people who are close, he's like, yeah, I'm all about this. Let me swear an oath. You see what I'm seeing? A doomsday cult. They took the doomsday cult, Church Universal Triumphant, and they brought it back. And it's not a coincidence that right now Russia and China are about to nuke us from space with space heaters for the next Space 9/11. And again, if you missed it, 1/9, 19 stories, 19 reported dead. Then, of course, you have the Twin Towers. This is basically a ritualistic reminder of 9/11, and they were burned down by space heaters. No coincidences. Empress says public nudity is also a ritual. Right, the whole thing was a ritual. You had your ritualistic initiation into the cult, your blood pact with the state, just like in the witchcraft where you prick your finger, the needle prick. It's all the same thing, communion wafer. Salty says even the firemen were twerking down the poles. Yeah, there were hours of it. I mean, we ought to go back and compile all the dancing nurse footage together. And have you seen this nurse? Because I am curious. Like, do these people work now? Like, could you go to your local hospital and you're like, oh, hey, I remember you from 2020. You were the one that were, yeah, you were skating down the hall in that rack there. Now, my explanation for it all has been this. You have a lot of people who are part of a PSYOP and they don't know that there is no wave coming in. Remember that? They're like, oh, first wave's coming, second wave's coming in. It's like, we haven't even had a wave. So they're expecting something, nothing ever happens, and they're all told, hey, just be thankful that it's happening elsewhere. But in the meantime, let's have some fun and not talk about it. So they open the pharmacy, give them pizza parties, send them home with more money. Crisis actor pay. Everybody got their stimmy checks. That was your crisis actor pay. Hush money. Again, multiple space heaters in Bronx apartment. I happen to think that's the subtext, that's the narrative. I don't think that these psyops happen without a reason. They're all ways to drive the plot forward. Now listen to this. Deadly Bronx Fire puts focus on space heaters that some see as, quote, symbols of inequality. Inequity, excuse me. So in other words, this is something that the one percenters with their mega yachts wouldn't have to worry about. Jeff Bezos wouldn't have to worry about this. Deadly Bronx Fire puts space heaters. Now, to me, the meta script of this thing, because all the 9/11 synchronicities with this tells me it's about the space 9/11, and the space heater represents the CubeSat with the lasers or something. But symbols of inequity. So there's another layer of meaning to the story that they already had ready to go. This is just too good. They already had this entire narrative prepared to just put out there and tug at people's heartstrings in all the right ways. And most people won't believe it's fake. I mean, they'll just assume it's real because it's on TV. They won't even question that there could be a narrative there. Lily Bell says, I would rather see twerking firemen, but that's just me. All right, let's go ahead and listen to the rest of this. So his friend again, before we get too much further, we're talking about EMPs. And look, EMP may be a big part of Space War. The whole thing about it, too, electromagnetic pulse. It's what happens when you detonate nukes high up in the atmosphere. It doesn't have to be on the ground. So if you think about that, faking a nuke is easy on TV. But in reality, how are you going to do it? Well, if you do it really high up, you don't have to worry about actually destroying infrastructure. You just need a good fireworks show and pull the plug on everything. And then you have a few CubeSats fall from the sky, starting fires here and there like space heaters, and boom, space 9/11. All right, let's go ahead and listen to the rest of this.
Could be going around and actually telling this to, the people that follow him. But she's totally freaked out. She's scared. And, honestly, there's nothing really I could do for her but to listen. But I just thought it was kind of interesting that Flynn would be pushing.
Now, $250, that's just to get in the door. The people who got into the bunkers of Elizabeth Clare Prophet, I mean, what a name, Prophet. Prophet is in making money. But her name was spelled prophet, like a prophetess, telling the future. So she has this doomsday cult. They move everybody into the bunkers. Well, these are the people who could afford to go in. They bought their way into these bunkers. And this is all for a reset. This is all the idea that the world's going to be destroyed and we're going to build back better. So, again, a doomsday cult, and this person has fallen for it. And if you look at Dealey Plaza, you have the sad sight of people waiting for JFK to show up. And they're out there drinking bleach, ivermectin, drinking their own waste. And, presumably. This is what happens at the end of the road for this thing. I'm not sure where it all ends yet, but his friend is clearly under the spell that, yeah, this guy's got the truth on this. They're going to EMP us and shut everything down. Why isn't he shouting this from the rooftops? Why isn't General Flynn saying, hey, just a heads up, everything's going down? Why is he only telling the people with cash in hand?
A lot of fear, a lot of fear. And I didn't know if anyone had heard of this, because I certainly hadn't heard that he was doing tours, but just thought it was interesting and maybe everyone would want to know about it. Good job, man, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
All right, appreciate the heads up. Everyone, there's going to be an EMP. They're going to shut everything down. Thought you might want to know about it. Okay, what else do we have going on? Look, everything about asteroid impacts, everything in the news, we've talked about this enough. I think everybody knows now what's going to happen. Let's see what else we have. U.S. extremism on Telegram, fueling disinformation, conspiracy theories, and accelerationism. I like that, accelerationism. You have the gamification of mass murder. You have accelerationism, where it's this idea of the haters want to bring about a reset, and they can do this by creating violence, and someone else will accelerate it and imitate it, and it'll be this domino effect. That's a conspiracy theory. But no, they consider that to be a fair interpretation of the motives of the conspiracy theorists, that they actually want to destroy the world. They have conflated wrongthink with terrorism at this point. And they were kind of shoehorning it in with the idea that the people with wrongthink were now super spreaders of a virus, or super spreaders of ideas that would make people more susceptible to viral infection. They've made that case very well. Now again, expect midterms may spur right-wing violence. This is a publicservicenews.org article. It says, as the midterms approach this fall, experts are warning that political violence will flare up. Not another attack on the Capitol, but outbursts based on state and local issues. So again, right now in North Carolina, in 24 counties, starting in a couple of weeks, they're going to be doing drills where the military is going to simulate killing a bunch of right-wingers. Just a heads up. And that's what it is. Don't think they're preparing to go after Antifa. Again, this is the big news right now. Look, the next wave of extremist cults will make QAnon look tame. Now, who's in the extremist cult here? Breaking, don't look up, asteroids are a possible threat. Like, I see a doomsday cult that the world is in. And the people who aren't believers in the news are supposedly the ones who are extreme. Emperor says maybe the EMP attack will cure the COVID. 5 Minutes says, get it now. Most places are banning wood as a fuel, which is dumb because decaying fallen trees make the same CO2 as burnt trees. Okay, interesting. You know, I was talking about the atmosphere earlier. You're like, well, what's next? You know, after COVID, what's next? Environmentalist lockdowns. Well, how do you justify environmental lockdowns? It's going to have to do with the atmosphere. And maybe they can do something. Perhaps it can be simulated, but I think they're going to coerce people into full-on space suits. I think that's what's coming next. And if you've noticed, one of the main stories being pushed into the zeitgeist, into your subconscious, has been, I can't breathe, we can't breathe, running out of air. The TV show I've been referencing lately, The 100, is about a space station running out of air. You know, limited supply of air. Too many people. I can't breathe. It became one. I can't breathe because of capitalist oppression. You know, the police, of course, defenders of the system, and the system is inherently oppressive. So George Floyd, I can't breathe. Anagram for a better China. Again, this is all a reference, I believe, to the world communist takeover. I can't breathe because capitalism is polluting the skies. I can't breathe is tied into the environmentalist thing, which does connect to the idea of the Earth as Titanic and the comet as iceberg in Don't Look Up. They've used this as a just sort of a way of showing us, look, don't listen to the scientists and look what's going to happen. So they've been trying to convince us for some time that man is the problem, that we're destroying the world, we can't breathe. So this is like a reoccurring theme, and they're giving us a complex. So when you're told, hey, yeah, you can't breathe the air, it's bad for you, put on a mask, people will probably do it. They will probably do it. What's going to stop? They're walking people towards it. They get people to wear masks because what? They fear other people. They may say, oh no, I'm wearing this to protect you. But no, it's all because they're selfish, narcissistic sellouts who buy into the system. So they're wearing it to protect their own selves, their own faces, they're basically already, I think, prepared. The environment's not safe. We are the aliens now. We are aliens to this environment. This environment is actually hostile to our existence. Therefore, we need an immune system. And of course, the one you're born with doesn't count. They got to inject one. You need an exoskeleton. You got to protect your skin. You need PPE. And of course, you can't breathe the air, so put the fishbowl on your head. Boom. Space age. And I think the space age is as much cyberspace age as, quote, outer space age. It's getting people into the metaverse rather than exploring the universe. Valerie Lane just subscribed. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Good to know that the alert system here is activated. We're using Streamlabs. So if you go to the link below and you click it, you can actually tip or whatever, and you can put the super chat, is what they call it here. You can put the super chat message on the screen, and I think it'll linger on the screen for a few minutes, and I can't censor it. So, I don't really have any interest in censoring people anyway. All right, going through some comments. All right, let's see. Now, we started off tonight talking about Owen Schroyer, or Owen Shaman as I've been calling him. Owen Shaman, is he the same person? Owen Schroyer, QAnon Shaman, same or different? Mentioned this, Stanley Kubrick's daughter is a QAnon and Proud Boy supporter. No surprise there. Been discussing a few other things, the significance of the fire. Again, just the date, 1/9/11 a.m., 19 stories, 19 reported dead. Even the street address and everything else seem to comport with this idea we're looking at some kind of a psyop. And then, of course, the building, Twin Parks. Doesn't get any more 9/11-y than that. And then you had the images of the firemen walking around with masks on, which should recall how the firemen looked after 9/11, when they all came out with masks, because of the dust. In fact, I think that's interesting in itself, just the foreshadowing of the masks. In fact, I have an image here. There's a lot of foreshadowing in Kubrick's film, in his various films, all of his movies, in fact, that seem to foreshadow 9/11 for sure. And also foreshadowing, I believe, the coming 9/11 from space. But here you can see an image from 9/11, firemen wearing masks. Not for COVID, but now, fast forward to right now, and you're seeing firemen wearing masks at the scene of the fire. Very 9/11-y, caused by, quote, space heaters. Subtext to me says Space War reference, Space War, Space 9/11 incoming. Don't look up. All right, let's see. Let me go ahead and go through, see if any more voicemails. Again, Leonardo DiCaprio's mega yacht burns 300 gallons of diesel fuel per hour. Unbelievable. I believe I have a track here I want to play. Earlier we played Chief Crow. Someone had called in to ask what he meant when he referenced the Telecommunications Act of 1996. 96, y'all. Well, here is another, I believe this is a track. Yes, this is by One Step Too Far. I'm going to play a couple minutes of this. This is The Final Frontier.
350, cabin 34, number 1 APUs 3850, number 2 source 3900, mixing chamber both about minus 43.
All right, thanks for joining. It is January the 5th, 2022. 10 a.m. Mountain Time. You can join us every morning here at Preparing Radio. We'll be broadcasting at Free Earth Radio, so if you go to ferlive.com, again, that's ferlive.com, participate in the chat there with those listeners. So this is the Flat Earth Report for 1/5/22. This is probably the longest running podcast on the topic, and Free Earth Radio is the station that carries us now. It says here, this is on their site, Free Earth Radio is proud to present. All right, this is Final Frontier, One Step Too Far. We'll be putting this into circulation on the 24/7 stream. Appreciate the musical input from all these various musicians and content creators. Again, this is Final Frontier, and I'll put this in the notes below. Stuff. I'm Mars travel, space travel in general, what the space papacy is up to, and now the space wars, which is the newest thing. And I focus on these things with this particular podcast because the news media distorts it all. They do not report things accurately. All right, again, I'll put the link below, and I'll also link some Chief Crow tracks. If anyone wants to call in here, it's 833-311-1984. Joined by Zareth the Alchemist. It says, thanks, Tim and the Tanksters. Jordan says, shout out to the Smudge Gators. Celestial says, reminds me of the Terminator. Right. Well, the Terminator movies, I was talking about those earlier with someone. The Terminator movies have 9/11 predictive programming in them. Then you have the Terminator today, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's part of the World War Zero initiative. Again, World War Zero. There's not enough air. We can't breathe. I talked about Astro World, the Astro World human sacrifice thing. Well, the people were saying, I can't breathe. And the attorney that represented them is the same guy that's representing the Floyd family. I can't breathe. So I'm like, interesting, common theme here. So here you have worldwarzero.com. Net zero emissions by 2050, and then you have the Terminator, and notice how they represent him. Half of his face is covered, so you only see one eye. We can't return to normal because normal was the crisis. Oh, I thought the crisis was the pandemic. The guy didn't heat up his bat soup to the 160 degree recommended internal temperature for game meat or whatever. Underheated bat soup killed us all. Nope, normal was the crisis. We're breathing too much. And I noticed too that there was a huge war waged on yoga. They're like, people who get into yoga get into alternative medicine, become anti-vaxxers, and they like to breathe. Oh yeah, that's right, he did, didn't he? Didn't the Terminator said, screw your freedoms. That's a direct quote. I searched a quote, screw your freedoms. It was actually I put that in quotes, and the first thing that comes up. So that's what he's pretty much known for. And, everybody pretty much display where they stand on the question of, do you worship Big Brother? But yeah, here we have Schwarzenegger.
But I think people should know there is a virus here. It kills people. And the only way we prevent it is to get vaccinated, to wear masks, to do social distancing, washing your hands all the time, and not just to think about,
Infinite Plane Radio.
What's up, Tim? How's it going?
Very, very good. Just going over the World War Zero agenda. Screw your freedoms. Agree or disagree?
I disagree. Well, I agree that's the agenda, but I disagree with that premise. But, dude, yeah, I mean, that's the craziest thing about Leonardo DiCaprio. Is that like a factual? That has to be factual, because if it's a 70-foot yacht, you know what I'm saying, it's burning a lot of gas. But like, dude, like the people, like I've said this before, on here, but the people who are like the bastions of this environmentalist movement are literally the biggest hypocrites, and they're just basically like frontmen. Like, it's just wild, and they preach to us, but at the same time, we have to curtail our lives. When we're not the ones burning hundreds, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's wild.
Yeah, it really is, because if you think about the movie The Titanic as like a metaphor for the Earth and climate change, he's on the Titanic right now, publicly, in front of everybody. And it's like, didn't he learn anything? So, and same with Jeff Bezos. It's like they're flaunting it in our faces. Like, look what we can do and you can't do. And then you look at the opulence of the papacy, and I think that this green agenda is the new church. And it's always been the same. The people who run the religions live in this fabulous palace, and then the poor people, live in a carbon neutral hut, or maybe a cardboard box, and don't breathe so much.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's wild because those ideals are old. Like, these aren't just new phenomena that people are just coming up with and trying to implement. You know what I mean? Like, all these things go back, like I at least like 10 years. More, the idea of it at least, but we're really starting to see it put in place now.
Yeah, it's been
like in hyperspeed.
It has
like
been
a fourth booster. Like, Like I remember you making satire about that 2 years ago. You know, saying that it's a vax junkie. Like it's just amazing to me that like something like that was predicted already. It was just so apparent though.
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, you don't need to show your Vax Pass. Just roll up your sleeve and show your Vax tracks because they're going to make you into Vax junkies. And yeah, everything they're doing today seems templated. This whole reality does. I was talking earlier today about how you had in the spring, you had the eruption of the St. Vincent Island volcano, and only the people who were vaccinated could get on the escape ships. So the subtext of the story was, if you get vaxxed, you get saved when the angry volcano god erupts. But if you're not, you get the lake of fire. So it's like Jehovah, the angry volcano god, is going to punish you if you don't get it. And it's a very powerful story that they told us, and it got people to go along with it.
Yeah, it's wild, but like that to me is just like, is that even healthy? Like what other? I understand people get vaccinated, you know, that's not a problem, but like the urgency of it and like it's experimental. It's experimental. You know, I don't want to be too crazy with it, but it's experimental. It's a new vaccine. It's a new type of vaccine. It's mRNA. It's a different technology.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think about what the person who left me a long voicemail said? That he had a friend who visited General Flynn who said there's an EMP that's going to go off and put us all in the dark, and it's going to literally explode the heads of anybody who took the boosters, the pokey. What do you think of that proposition?
I mean, that could be a little extreme, but I mean, honestly, I was just watching something about 5G. You know, just the fact that these are millimeter, they're millimeter wet. Like you can go look at the technology. The Army had things that they can make it feel like you're burning to dispel crowds in different scenarios and stuff like that. But it doesn't kill you. But it's a topical, like only that because it's very precise. So they can tune into certain frequencies. So, I mean, if we're all being pumped full of, that's the whole point to me. It's just like, what's the urgency to have everyone? It's not good enough that 80% of people have a vaccine already for this, but they want you to continue this. So what's in it that's being, you know, something that could be priming us possibly for a scenario like that? Or, you know, they've already talked about the mind control and, you know, I mean, if you think about it, we're all susceptible to frequencies and manipulation of frequencies. So we're made of water, we're electrochemical. So now we have these nodes and modules everywhere around us that, you know, operate on a different level like that. And I don't see why that couldn't happen. Because if they just turn the volume up and overload the signal, you know, that could have biological implications in humans.
Right. I mean, there's a few scenarios. One, it is what the news reports, which I don't believe. Two, it could all be a psyop, a schism, a new holy war, just a communion wafer. Three, it could be an operation to explode people's heads or control them. And then another one, the fourth one.
I was thinking about this too, not to interrupt you, with the rapture. Like, okay, so imagine like, you know, a lot of people are getting this vaccine. So, you know, what if people just drop dead one day? And then all the people that are left, you know, are people would start to think that they weren't the chosen. You know what I mean? So they're in hell now. So I just kind of thought, like, that'd be crazy.
Yeah, okay, that's good. That's actually good because look at the symbolism of the Space Needle. It's the new obelisk. It's your ticket to the heavens. The elevator represents the elevation, the elevated. You have all the symbology of the ticket to the new age is the rocket, which is another space needle that goes into heaven. So Space Needle in Seattle, ground zero for the pandemic. It's the place where Bill Gates is from. So actually, you might be onto something, that maybe this is their ticket to, quote, heaven. And interestingly enough, both Betty White and Bob Saget just had their boosters before they went to heaven, just recently. So you might be onto something there. Maybe it's the rapture.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I mean, you know, or at least that could be how they're presenting it.
That's what I mean.
You know,
that's the story. That's the story. It looks like a rapture
programming
story.
And priming. Every story goes back to, like, I watched something about how all movies really just revolve around a similar plot line, and they go back like to Greece and like just very simple plays that were done, and different different allegories and stories that have been hashed over time. But I was like, wow, that's interesting that you can't escape these archetypes. Like, so we're always being played off of an archetype, in my opinion, of some understanding, some deeper understanding, a tradition, But COVID has interrupted all of that, because what other time in history have they told you to not go to a funeral? You can't go to a funeral to see a loved one.
This is literally
they've hit a spiritual level.
They hit a reset
manipulation.
button based on timing. But something else I want to point out here is, just look. You said everything's based on, like we've been prepared for this. The mark of the beast stuff is so prevalent, and it just seems like it's beyond coincidence. It's a calculated maneuver here, and so I'm like, well, they left it open for some people to interpret that maybe they're giving us the operating system for a demonic host. So maybe the person gets raptured, but instead of dropping dead, they just get replaced.
What do you think about the graphene oxide or whatever? What's your opinion on that?
Well, that perfectly fits in with the whole idea of binding you to the Saturnian matrix, the whole black cube monolith, cult of the monolith, the black screen, to pull you through the looking glass. Like, the whole thing to me makes perfect sense. So it's like, yeah, they left that open for you to connect those dots if you care to.
There's definitely, in my opinion, a technological material. Like, I mean, that's what it is. Genetically, I guess, the vaccine.
Listen to this. So the missing in the comment says, NASA's sending drones to the sun. It has 3 boosters to drop into the corona. So if you look at corona, crown, and the chakra system, you're talking about the top of the head. You're talking about the seat of consciousness. And I'm like, interesting. Maybe space war could be a war on inner space. Space invaders invading inner space. Circulation is orbit, and all the iconography showing space invaders invading from within. This seems like the case. And I've even been writing the word alien invaders, but spelling it AI, Leon, because there's some kind of connection between the whole AI thing as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for sure, dude. But we haven't even seen the quantum computer, or what's really going on at CERN. What is that powering? What type of, what I'm saying? Like, what have they actually been able to replicate? And, what type of energy, all these things that we haven't even really seen, they're just sitting quietly doing. The quantum computing, Facebook. I just watched another thing about the transatlantic cable, and, Google. That's why, in my opinion, we've seen this huge step up, and it makes so much sense, because now Google and Facebook have come together to invest in their own cable, right? That's going to be the fastest internet, or not fastest internet, but the fastest. It's going to be faster than the transatlantic cable and capable of more data transfer. So, they're taking a huge step, and now they're going to be the arbiters of all of our data in America, basically.
Now, if we go down this route, and I look at, you look at the symbolism, everything they gave us, you can look at the $100 bill, and the way it's folded, it looks like a space needle with an EMP blast above it. So connect the idea of the EMP blast wiping people's minds or blowing up their heads with the space needle, and it actually being on the $100 bill. Well, everything we saw on the folded up bill so far has, foreshadowed 9/11. So I'm like, And then one other thing, interestingly enough.
Oh, that was another thing that you were speaking about, is how, in my opinion, every generation or so, if you want to call it that, there are events that, shift the consciousness. And I think after a while, whoever is, keeping that record of how humans behave over thousands of years, understand this, that we all, and now they can manipulate us with media way quicker. So it's like now Corona, all this is just another 9/11, essentially, because now it's even more draconian rules coming. Like you thought that was crazy, that they could listen to your phone calls without you knowing it. Oh, okay, cool. Well, you don't even have autonomy over your body anymore.
Yeah, you're right. It started off with
these technologies in you to a better society to save you. What?
Well, we have to listen to your phone calls to save you, and we have to pat you down to make sure you don't have a bomb in your underwear. Well, now they get to read your thoughts and check what's in your blood. So they just went deeper.
Yeah.
They went deeper, and it's just a new iteration of the same psyop. Definitely, like you said, more draconian.
Yeah, there was something I watched with Steve-O. He has this little module on his arm, and it's basically just an interface, but you can't really do anything. It just sends data, right? So it's like some guy was like, he just made a comment about it on the show, and I was, oh, they said something about adrenaline, and they said, oh wow, so like they could see if you have adrenaline, and like if they see you have adrenaline, oh, why does he have adrenaline? And you're automatically put on like a hot list or something like that, for further inquiry.
Right. Hey, this is a feature.
So what's going on in this?
Yeah, this is a feature in a lot of sci-fi now. The 100 has it where your body is being monitored remotely. Even Equilibrium touched on this. That was a movie with Christian Bale where they were trying to get rid of culture because it might excite people's emotions, and so they created a society of equilibrium where nobody had extreme emotions. But they had to purge all the good memes, basically. They had to get rid of all the good ideas and all the good art.
That's one thing I've noticed about at least my generation and like the ones after, like a few years prior, dude, like that this whole like, I don't know, it's kind of like a hippie way, but in a weird way. Like something bad will happen and they don't want to address it, and they have no emotion over what's happening. They either get scared and don't know how to, you know what I'm saying? Like if someone gets in a fight, there's no emotion, but they're not doing anything about it. Is what I'm saying. Like it's kind of like apathy, but like if something's going wrong or something's uncomfortable, there's like, oh, just ignore it, bro. Like good vibes, dude. Like what are you talking about, dude? Like I don't know. It's just this weird mindset I've seen in our generation, and it's like when no one does anything about anything, it's like. It's hard to explain.
Well, I think too, though, we're looking at the sort of dependency. Like I've been commenting on how you've got the Proud Boys on the right and you got the Soy Boys on the left, and they're both fighting for favor from father government. So it's like this infantilization thing where you're meant to just wait for them to supply the answers. You just sit back and quarantine, relax in your house, watch Netflix. So I do think that there is they definitely have conditioned people that to be active at all, to be engaged is extreme. it's just extreme,
exactly.
Just to tweet.
That's kind of what I was getting at with that.
Yeah, I mean, tweeting itself, it's like the fact that they have people getting banned for 144 characters. Meanwhile, Twitter is awash with X-rated content, exploitative content, extreme content, violent content. But no, they go for political speech. They go for dank memeage. They go for people who have ideas. And that's what we've been.
Yeah, what is that about? What is that about? How can you get super explicit, content on a platform that also cries, for people who just say something? It's like it's so selective, and that's the thing. It's so obvious to see, but it's like, wow. It doesn't matter, though.
Well, we've been prepared. Okay, so before we had the state-mandated social distancing, they gave us safe spaces at the universities, and safe space culture was to protect snowflakes from right-wing ideas. And right-wing ideas doesn't mean Republican necessarily. It just means independence, freedom versus government dependency.
Yeah, what is that though? They've lumped that into like you're a racist. That's the craziest part about all of this. It's like, wow, like you have no logic. These people have no logic. It's like
wait until you get into
such a script.
Environmental justice, where they've just what they've done is they've conflated everything having to do with Western chauvinism with racism being just an integral part, intrinsic part of the system. And so now even environmentalism is a racial thing because the rich people are.
What other societies is that not the case? That's what I don't understand. Is like you could look at any society, any culture. It's all based off a racial hierarchy. Have you ever been to or familiar with Pakistan or India, these places? If you're of light skin, you're better. That's,
now, do you
I
think?
don't know why.
Do you think
the
vax?
What is the point?
It's I think it's caste system.
It's a caste system.
And the vaccinated people believe, oh, I'm on a higher caste system. So like now, when I go to the store and I see somebody without a mask, I don't assume, oh, this person knows it's all a hoax. I assume, oh, this person thinks they've been boosted into a new caste, so they don't have to wear the mask. Just like Jeff Bezos on his Titanic mega yacht is being served by servants wearing masks. Meanwhile,
Yes.
his guests don't
See,
have to.
that's a blatant just, that's a blatant example of what is going on, and just the crazy dichotomy we're living in. Is like, how is that? It's like the vassals. We're vassals to, their hierarchy, and it's like, what? So what is the point of? That's the whole thing. Is like, this virus is so fake. Like, all this is fake, and now, like, their main targets are minorities and people of poor economic stature. Like, and it's like, okay, why? If you want to uplift these people, why are you forcing experimental treatment on these people? All in the name of, but all in the name of, like, environmentalism. At the end of the day, it's all about the society and the people, and humans are bad. We're disgusting, dirty. Like, that's all this tells us.
Yeah, when you get down to it, it's the poor that the environmentalists hate. Like, you have to ask yourself, why aren't these billionaire philanthropists solving world hunger first? Let's feed them, then let's vax them. But no, they're not going to do that. And it's like, why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
If you have the resources to poke everybody, you could feed everybody.
Money funneled into, so much money was funneled, not to mention all the fraud that took place, but so much money was squandered and just given away during this whole pandemic that could have probably solved a lot of things if it were addressed appropriately,
Well, yeah, and here we are in 2022.
Just print money anyway.
We're in 2022, and Drudge Report has even remarked on this, that this is the year of Soylent Green, which was a movie forecasting a future of overpopulation and everything. And what's interesting about this is that movie in '73.
Now we have Impossible Burgers.
Yeah,
and that's a substitute. They'll go through all the trouble and spend billions of dollars to figure out how to make fake blood to make it taste like real meat, instead of figuring out how we can, sustainably get more people. How about we just get more people involved in creating, agriculture and making that better, instead of
spending the whole
all
thing
this weird
is
money on technology to replicate human blood or not human blood, but
the whole
just to
point of it is to
replicate
convince
something.
us that man is recycling is their god. I often point out it's the green god of the earth, and if you look at the recycling bin, that is an altar to the god of this
Well,
earth.
what about that? How about they create a better incentive for recycling? If the cans were worth 25 cents instead of 10 cents or 5 cents, whatever state you live in, or how about there's more opportunity to recycle? Or if you have a car, there's a better outlet for you to scrap all the parts, and get the most money you can. Like,
No, you're
we're not
thinking
on
you're thinking
levels
like a
this.
real environmentalist, not a communist, not a watermelon Marxist, green on the outside, red on the inside. You're actually thinking about saving Mother Earth, but these people don't really care when it comes down to it. If you look at all these climate hypocrites, and that's why I even brought up Leonardo DiCaprio. He's out there, the
As you
face
should
of
have.
environmental movement, and here he is on his own Titanic. What a hypocrite. Hey, what do you think about the assessment here that the Bronx fire is foreshadowing the space 9/11 because it was started by space heaters and is replete with 9/11 symbolism? You think I'm on to something with that?
Oh yeah, that was right before I called it. Well, absolutely. I mean, I don't know. They're just using anything. I mean, obviously it's some type of symbolism. Has to be, because they always use these opportunities, but it's like that Justice for Junior. All these things, like he was a sacrifice and all this weird things led up to it. This obviously could be used as just a thing to point out another injustice. But the space heater, space, Elon Musk, all these things going to Mars, that's on the agenda. Aliens. For the first time, aliens are being put in the mainstream. Like,
Yeah, you're right about that. And
10
in an
years ago,
accepted
no
way.
one would have. Yeah, it's a scientific fact. But as soon as you question COVID, or the fact that, hey, why am I getting pumped full of 4 different things? You know what I'm saying? And going to be a 5th and a 6th and a 7th and an 8th and a 9th and a 10th. But what's going to happen? That's my question. What's going to happen at that point? When people are 10 vaccines deep in the next year, okay? What's going to happen at that
I mean,
point?
it's a big science experiment. I watched this movie called Utopia, which has a Bill Gates-like
Is that even
character.
healthy?
You know what? I'm looking at this as, I hope it's not the case, but they have an incentive here. They've convinced the public that, we have to reduce the population to save the world, but they're not going to convince the public to agree to murdering a bunch of people. But if people find out, oh, by the way, we've all been, sterilized. Maybe there won't be such an uproar.
Yeah.
And that was the basis for this movie Utopia. And weirdly enough, this movie, it really, I think it was so on target, but it made anti-vaxxers the heroes. Because at the end of the movie, the anti-vaxxers destroyed the stash of vaccines to save the world. So you can see why they pulled it after one season.
Oh yeah, for sure, because they can't have that. But it's like also that is just like, what is that? So yeah, you take that. That's also ignorance. It's a very double-edged sword though, because it's like, oh, okay, that's a stroke of luck. How do you not make a mistake in that situation, like making the choice like that? But yeah, it makes sense, because why are we pumping our bodies full of synthetic chemicals? My whole thing about this is like they literally came out and said that like it's a cure. Like that, if you dig deep enough, you'll find articles and news reports, people saying that it's like a cure. Like even if you have it, just get it after. It's going to save you.
No, this is. I think what we've seen here is, we've seen the rollout.
Having 99%.
Look, we've seen when you get past all the actual so-called science or whatever the debate, you're looking at a superstition and the management of a new paradigm, a new religion, and they've reintroduced sin in a way that modern, even atheistic people will accept it. It's a sin proxy. They have a God proxy. They have a devil proxy. COVID, the globe, the virus, original sin. Yeah, that's your carbon footprint. And they figured this thing out, and that's why we have these priests in high places. We have the elevated priesthood, the astronauts who can see from God's eye view and tell us God's mad, change your ways, or he's going to flood the world. And they even have Noah, telling us this thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's 100%, if you ask me. The TV is the Bible of this new age. And so when I see these stories like that seem to be completely scripted to hint or foreshadow something, yeah, to me, I'm looking at it as it's a movie. And good directors like Stanley Kubrick know that you don't throw something in there unless it's going to show up later. You don't have random props.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting something big coming up when it comes to the Space 9/11. And I hope they don't kill the internet and blow up everybody's heads.
That's what I was going to ask you. What do you think about the Dark Winter? What's that about? Is that going to happen?
Well, now that I think about it, Dark Winter, of course, The Division, Tom Clancy, it has to. Tom Clancy wrote 9/11. Dark Winter is a huge part of this coming agenda. Then you have the foreshadowing at the inauguration.
That's my thing. I'm like, especially if they prime the public, like, okay, so what if the internet just got cut off right now? What would society think and believe? How would that affect what happens after? Even if it was just for like a month, let's say, and totally manufacture blackout.
I've thought about this. I thought about, okay, one, they destroy all the social media networks, which so they have the time to break up the networks of people who know what's going on. And you see what we are able to discern because we have 500 people in Discord, a lot of people watching. We pay attention and we put these things together. They'll destroy that, which makes you more reliant on the authorities. So that's one side effect. And then two, if they can shut the internet down even temporarily, they'll use it as an excuse to hit the reset button. And you don't get back on unless you have the digital equivalent of a vaccine, some kind of a clearance.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's definitely happening. And it's like, I think it's all possible with I keep saying it with the blockchain. It's just like that in my opinion, you're speaking about AI, like all that. Once that's all integrated, it probably already is, right? All these things like Facebook and all these media platforms, there's some back door. The government created the internet, maybe, or at least curated and funded it to create what it is now, the initial idea. So there has to be a back door. There is a back door to everything. So, like, whoever's plugged into the main net with the quantum computer, with the blockchain, every transaction, every interaction, can be put on the ledger. What's going to happen at that point? Like, I think we're very close to it, actually.
It's
not happening right now.
I'm glad you brought this up.
Blockchain.
You take
injected.
When you look at the iconography and the symbolism, all this stuff really stands out to me. But look at the Devil Tarot card, and I think this card explains man and his predicament right now. You have the devil on top of a black cube, a block, and they're chained to the block. And this represents the spiritual enslaved by the material or consciousness enslaved by matter. And this cube, it looks like a smartphone they're chained to. And they're not tugging at their chains because they're enslaved. And then, of course, the devil has bat wings,
Yeah.
symbolizing the underworld. And he has an inverted torch, which symbolizes the opposite of enlightenment, endarkenment, which I also think is interesting because it kind of looks like a rocket blasting up. And he's doing the live long and prosper. But the main point I want to point out here is they're chained to the block. They're bound to the Saturnian
Yeah.
matrix. And this is, I think, the end goal if our worst projections are true. That this is the blockchain. You're all going to be enslaved to the devil, basically, or locked down
Yeah,
spiritually.
I mean, well, if you think about it, even in Islam, there's the Kaaba, Mecca, which was worshipped by pagans before Islam, actually. So that's always been there. That's the Black Rock. So you have BlackRock, which is they own everything. They have investments in crypto. Then the blockchain, the technology. Like, and that's the thing. It just makes sense too, because like they have people blinded by money. So
check
okay,
this
yeah,
out. The
Bitcoin.
Burning Man. Okay, think about this. The Burning Man, as in getting rid of man. Burning Man Festival happened 33 times in a row from 86 to 2019, and it happened in Black Rock City. And then you have the interruption of our economy with the Black Monday market crashes. And when I started looking at Black Rock, Black Monday, I started seeing in the Metascript, it's 100% connected to this entire storyline that we've uncovered here.
Yeah. Well, a lot of founders. Oh, okay. So, Vitalik, he was at Burning Man. He would go to Burning Man. They were like different, like all the people that are very influential in blockchain technology and all these cryptos. A lot of them are weird Silicon Valley people, and a lot of them, like, not saying Vitalik is, but he would go to these things. There's a whole documentary about it, and he was just like a kid, like at these places, very smart, whatever. But like,
no, there are people who've done research. Look, Burning Man Festival is like the left-wing version of Bohemian Grove, where they also burn an effigy of a man. But the Burning Man is the same symbol as the phoenix. It's always connected to the number 33 for all the usual reasons, but it's about burning down the system and building back better. And that's where we're at right now. The phoenix was the symbol of this whole thing.
That's the biggest agenda, is build back better. It's so crazy. People, like, all this money, basically these people are just fighting for this money, right? At least in the short term, for this build back better agenda. All this build back better agenda is literally just funding the industrial, control grid.
Yeah, the
basically.
fourth industrial revolution, as Darth Schwab has put it. And yeah, this symbolism, though, to me, it all connects. And it's not even, to me, the symbol of the devil here, what it represents, it's not exactly like Satan necessarily, but I think what it represents here is this ultimate objective of we're all chained to the monolith. And the monolith is the New World Order's Bible/TV screen that we all take our orders from, and everything else that's not from it gets censored. So I think this is about the installation of a new world religion that's permanent. They just need to get rid of all of the outliers who've seen through it. That would be us, and they do so by, of course, banning
which
us.
is everything pre-COVID. Everything pre-COVID. That's why I think we're living in a very pivotal time right now, is because everything nostalgic from pre-COVID will, even like 9/11, like go back to 9/11. We were living in just a much more simple world. Like, it's very complicated still, but still much more simplistic. Now everything is so much more nuanced and complicated, and everything after COVID is just like a whole new different mindset and mentality. And
yeah, I think so. I think 9/11 actually fast-tracked the idea of getting... Everybody started carrying a flip phone after 9/11 because suddenly the threat was more immediate, and people who were resistant to being tracked weren't so resistant. And you can see how rapidly these things have changed.
Oh, yeah.
And so people...
That's actually a good point. I never really thought about that.
Yeah, wait until they
you
sell
gotta have
people...
a phone, we got to be safe.
Well, the metaverse, people scoff at it. Oh, you're not going to get me to immerse myself in some kind of internet forever. It's like, well, wait a couple of years. And all the people who are scoffing are going to be plugged in 24/7. Happily.
Oh, yeah. If at least not, if not that, some part of their life is going to be processed, or maybe without their knowledge even, utilizing the metaverse. Like, same thing with cryptocurrency. Like, that's why it's like people who don't get in early to it, doesn't even matter, because there's going to be a point where it's just like not stagnant, but to where it's making money, and it doesn't matter because it's about the actual application of what these things are doing, what they're keeping account of, what they're, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not going to matter anymore. So even if you don't use crypto and you still try to, be old school, it doesn't matter, because maybe the person you're paying is just going to be converting that into, you know what I'm saying? Like, they're going to be utilizing it without their knowledge even.
Yeah, and it could also be, as some have said, an injectable way of an injectable operating system for the new demonic hosts that will be taking over post rapture. Anyway, hey, you've brought up a lot of interesting points. Appreciate you calling in. The idea of the rapture and the Space Needle, very, very interesting correlations. So, yeah, definitely call back anytime. I'm going to be pretty much open phones every night here. And, yeah, I think we've covered everything. Anything else we've missed here? Owen Schroyer being QAnon shaman, do you think we're on target with that?
I mean, one of the pictures, a couple of the pictures, I was like, wow, that's pretty, on point. But, in my opinion, they could all, maybe it's interesting too, because they're really trying to fry him too. They're trying to put him in prison, I think. That guy, Owen Schroyer or whatever.
Yep, exactly. He's being fried as well.
So what really did he do? Maybe he what? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, appreciate the call. See. Call back anytime.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, that was exactly 33 minutes and 30 seconds. All right, let's see here what we have going through the comments. 5 Minutes says we'll need something if they want to invade or call us. We do have something. It's called Fake World News. And the new issue is going out now. Let me see here. One Step Too Far has joined us. Hey, I got your track on Reddit. Appreciate that. I'll put that in the comments. Yeah, so is QAnon, or the QAnon shaman, Owen Schroyer, of InfoWars in disguise? InfoWars, tip of the spear. Why would this matter? Well, this would suggest that the entire thing was a charade, likely even filmed in advance in large part with regard to the internal footage. Why haven't we seen all the CCTV? The closed circuit television footage, 14,000 hours, that would show us what happened, exactly what happened. They don't show us because it would show us the whole thing was staged and fake. This is the case with all of these various psyops. They never show you. If you want to leave messages overnight, 833-311-1984. I'm going to do my best to put links in the chat for everything that we go over here. Let's see, we've also talked about the Omicron. Look, the Omicron variant happens to be, coincidentally, consistent with the name of the reptilian invaders in Futurama, the Omicron reptoid aliens, and they come from Percy Complex 8. Percy is the name of a piece of Russian space junk that was entering our atmosphere at the exact time that Omicron is invading. So these are not coincidences. Someone brought this up since we talked about the breathing thing. I need to bring this up again really quick here. This idea of I can't breathe, we can't breathe, is all part of an ongoing agenda, and I think it's all about eliminating the oppressive influence of Western chauvinism, capitalism, private property. That's why the BLM is about abolish the police, because of Derek Western chauvinism. And I talked about this a lot before last year, but Derek Chauvin, 9/11 to America, if you break it down, it's very simple. Derek means hangman. Chauvin, Western chauvinism. 8 minutes, 46 seconds, kneeling, suffocating someone, asphyxiating. 8:46 a.m. is when 9/11 started, when the first plane hit the tower, the first of the two towers. 8:46 p.m. is when the sun set in the Twin Cities, the night of George Floyd's supposed death. I can't breathe, again, I'm suggesting here, is the main meme of the zeitgeist that they're forcing out there. We're running out of air. It's in all the movies. So here you have David A. Pryor posted this in Discord. He watched the 2016 horror movie Don't Breathe, and he says 95% of it takes place in a house on the corner of Linwood Street. Lynn Wood, 2020 reference, attorney of Kyle Rittenhouse. Next, the other movie that he mentioned is called The Happening, about the air killing people. And it takes place at Rittenhouse Park. And here you have Rittenhouse Park, Philadelphia, 11:31 a.m. So Rittenhouse, Kyle Rittenhouse, his attorney, Lynn Wood, both referenced in movies that have the theme, the overall message being conveyed, the inability to breathe. And why were they having riots? Because of capitalism. And it's not only oppressive, they can't breathe because of the Western chauvinistic cops oppressing people, but there's no breathing because capitalism itself is causing the world to suffocate, as testified by all of the astronauts who have gone high enough to have a God's eye view, to get the overjaw effect. A cognitive shift, where now they're suddenly environmentalist wacko Democrats because they've gone so high up there. Lack of oxygen, perhaps. But they say it's because from up there, national boundaries disappear, and they just get this elevated view of, oh, everything is one. Which makes sense because the globe is the one. It's the one universal religion. Like the old universal logo. That is their God, but you'll notice they tend to spend more time praising their devil, COVID, which is why I'm comfortable saying that the leftists are devil worshippers. All right. I think we're caught up on everything for now. I'm just going through my last minute comments here. Another Masonic lodge burned. What if that was a friend of Mac Parhar? You know, Mac Parhar, by the way, most likely a death faker. Name is an anagram for Pharmaca, which is the sacrificial goat, the exile, the scapegoat, and he certainly played that role. Again, Mac Parhar was a yoga instructor. The significance there? A breather. And yoga instructors have been pointed at for the last year as really as rebels in this system, as people who are actually against the establishment science and medicine, dangers to society, super spreaders of bad information. So it's interesting that they have actually made a scapegoat out of a yoga instructor. All right, so this is Chief Crow, Auto Hoax. I'm going to play the rest of this song again. Again, I want to say thanks to everyone who hung out tonight. And join us in the morning. Usually I'll be hanging out at Crater Earth USA in the chat. I'm always listening at darkmatter.radio. There's been a bit of a lull period because I've been engaged in lawfare for the most part. In fact, let me go ahead and see if there's anything else on my Subscribe Star. If you don't follow my blog at timosman.blog, I highly recommend it because I put a lot of raw material, raw thoughts or observations that I haven't had time to parse through. And I tend to do that and just S-post it all over my Subscribe Star page, and so you can go ahead and subscribe there for free. There are deeper, you can pay if you want to get the full access to some of the material here, but nope, I'm using it more or less as a place to just conveniently leave information that I can assess later. So I'll put a link there, timosman.blog. Just going through to make sure I haven't missed anything, just last minute here. But I've been distracted more or less because of the process of having to sue YouTube, which I'm doing because they have sided with trolls. They have taken a position when it comes to the question of whether or not to honor my copyright takedown notifications, which are all legitimate. And for the most part, no, they have not only not honored them, but they have deleted my channels whenever I have even submitted these forms. So I've had to take them to court over it, and I expect it to turn out in my favor. I also want to thank COVID for making it super easy, since now you can do everything for the most part remotely. Again, going through some comments just a moment here. One Step Too Far says, watch those videos in your mentions after you end the stream. Okay, will do. Mary Smith says, thanks for the memories. Zara says, do you have any quadrantes? Tim Stradamus. Oh, right. Actually, I do. We have been making predictions as of late, and February 22nd is a date to watch. It's George Washington's birthday. It's been pointed out by a lot of people, but it's going to be 22220 2-2, and it just happens to take place on a Tuesday. So something should happen that day. Anyway, I'll be back.
My body,
Subscribe to the newsletter.
my body and me.
Telecommunications Act of 1996.
96, y'all.
Gonna filter your eyes and scrub your mind.